Okay, this is a very short video explaining how to use pop-ups. I've written some code. I'll supply the code to you. I've run it so that you can see what it does, and we're going to trace what I've written now. Right, so we have the class popup, which is an app, and it's got a title called Popups Example, and it returns main layout. So go find main layout. Main layout is here. That's the worst arrow in the world. And it's a box layout, and it has one string property, no name. That's the default string that gets displayed. So this, because you see a string property, you presume that that's in the Kivy file, and we'll go find it in a second. And it has one function, setName, and all that function does is it opens a pop-up. Okay, everything else should be fairly self-explanatory. Okay, now we're in the Kivy file, and the main layout is a box layout, and you can see that it has an orientation that's vertical. Okay, here. And it has a button, and it has a label. On press, the button, sorry about that. On press, the button runs that function that we were talking about a second ago, the setName function, and all that does is open the pop-up, and it has a label on it, which is referenced from that string property. And you can see that there, full name. Right, so that's fairly self-explanatory, so we're going to move on, move those up, and have a look at the pop-up, which is all the work that happens. Okay, just going to shuffle the name off the screen. Alright, so we have a title fairly self-explanatory. We have a size hint. Now, the size hint is saying you are automatically resizing yourself to be 1:1. So pop-ups are automatically the size of the app, which isn't exactly what we're used to looking at with pop-ups. We want them to be slightly smaller, so they grey out the background and focus the eye. So I've just made mine half and half. It's expecting two values here separated by a comma. So that makes it half the width and half the height, and so it jumps out in the middle of the screen. Then we have auto dismiss. Now, you don't have to change this. I thought that was useful to change it. So auto dismiss means when I click away from the pop-up, it will disappear. And you'll notice that more and more in apps these days, that auto dismiss works as kind of like a cancel. I just turned it off so that they had to press a button. And you can do those kinds of things. If you're the developer, you can say, no, actually, I want you to think about this. But if you were saying something like putting a tooltip, help in that screen, so when somebody presses a question mark on the screen, it pops up with some information, then of course you could click away and have that disappear. Okay, so I haven't gone over grid layouts before, but once you understand box layouts, they all work pretty much the same. So let's work through this grid layout. There are 2 columns, so that's going to look like this. And every 2 things I put in here, it will make a new row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's pretty much how that works. You can work out what the rest happens. Okay, so I have used a grid layout because it's good for user input if you're just getting them to type. So here I have text on the left which says salutation, telling them what they have to type. And then on the right, I have a label, a text box input that allows them to type a salutation. I probably shouldn't have made that LBL. The reason I gave this a prefix is because if you're working with a big application and you've got lots of different versions of the same variables, because you've got the ones on the screen, you've got the ones that are global, you've got the ones that are being managed in each individual function, it might be easy to keep track of them if you give them a prefix. And this right tab thing here, I personally think that the people that designed Kivy made a mistake here, but I'm not willing to write to them about it. Right tab means that you're allowing the tab key to be used inside a text box. So if you're making a really big text box that was like a Word document, for example, a clone of Word, then of course you want the right tab to be set to true because you want them to be able to tab, right? But we just want to take data. I don't want any tab characters inside their salutation, first name and last name. And if I set it to false, then when they click the tab key, it jumps to the next text input so that they can type, which is a much better user experience. So that's why I've used right tab. These little tiny things that can make your app a whole lot better. You can get some advice from me if you need it. Okay, so I've got salutation, first name, last name, and then I have this button. I have a button down here, which is a cancel button, and all it does is dismiss the screen. This one dismisses the screen too. That's what that does, dismiss pop-up. But in the meantime, before it does that, it does updates app.root.fullname. So that goes to the app, which is the parent, and then the root widget of the app, which is our box layout, and then the full name string property, which we've set, and it sets it to this string. So I've taken the text from whatever they entered into salutation, the text from whatever they entered into first name, sorry for crossing that out, the text for whatever they entered into last name, and I put spaces in between. So there's a space, and there's a space there, but it's irritatingly rolled around to the beginning of the next line. Just read that as a space. Okay, so it's going to take those text inputs and it's going to push them onto the main screen. And this is useful. There's not a lot of work happening here. The concatenation of the string is probably the most difficult thing to understand. But it means that we're getting live updates. So let's have a look at the actual demo. Okay, so here's the demo. Type, Mrs., hit tab and it jumps to the next one. Amanda, hit tab, jumps to the next one. Hogan, click change. It closes the box, but before it does that, it updates the screen.